No, but aloha.
Aloha.
It's one of my favorite shirts in the summertime. But I've never been to Hawaii. How are you doing?
Yes, I'm good, thank you. Yeah, I'm good.
So I'm loving you. Your email was like, my life is so different. Tell me about it.
Amazing. Yeah, I've got friends and doing things, and I didn't try. It's not like I went out looking for it. I don't know, things just started coming to me.
Yeah, did you notice it doesn't take much effort at all, whereas before it would have been like, you would have had to buy like a self-help book to motivate you to do it.
Yeah.
To inspire you to put yourself out there and to face all of your fears,
Yeah.
Amazing. So how was your body image stuff? I mean, when was the last time you were concerned about your body image?
Zero concern.
It's irrelevant, isn't it?
Completely irrelevant. Yeah. Can
you imagine how many years you lived thinking it was so important?
Yeah, decades and decades.
Yeah, and the more important you think it is, the more you could see, especially it's the image in your mind you think is important. It's not, it's not necessarily the body as it is the image in your mind you're trying to get the body to match.
Yeah.
And the symbolism that you've placed on it. So we can even say it's not even the body image you were really making important. It was the symbolism of what you thought the image in your mind. You thought the image in your mind and the symbolism of what that was really important, right?
I did, yeah.
So it's confusing because people think, well, being thinner is this magical thing, but what they're actually, they don't necessarily consciously see that. They're consciously or unconsciously thinking being special, being seen as superior, having people look up to me. Those are the things you're really looking for.
Yeah.
Getting approval.
Yeah.
So once you surrender all that, really, when it comes down to it, because to recover, you had to get rid of all of those benefits. And you have to accept all of the beliefs on the negative side, which is, well, people will think I'm inferior, I'm out of control, can't handle anything, I'm crazy.
Yeah.
So you do both. You go into, I don't want approval, superiority. I don't want any of that anymore. And even if I could get approval for that reason, I don't want approval for that reason. So right now, would you agree you're kind of living in a space where you're just being real with the essence of your being, and people are really attracted to that?
That's what seems to be happening, because, I don't know how, I'm finding it hard to find the words, but people are, like, I've been invited to things, and I went to a colleague's leaving party, and when I walked in, everybody cheered. And normally that would never happen. I would have skulked in, probably, looking awkward and tried to sit. And I just felt so, don't know, I just went. I just went.
Mm-hmm. It's kind of...
Took a dress on and went.
Well, and aren't you glad? Because you could say before you were probably wanted to have that feeling. Would you say right now the way you're existing is what you thought would happen when you were thin enough, smart enough, when you reached those levels of conditions, when you could make the conditions appropriate, then people would, this was what you thought you were going to get.
Yeah, but I'm not trying. I'm not trying to do anything.
Well, and you're not even trying to get you're not trying to get approval. You're not even looking for those things.
If anything, because of the meltdown I had in the meeting, which was a massive turning point, it would have been a huge discouragement to go and say, oh no, I can't possibly face everyone. But I didn't care. I just went. I just thought it's good just to be there for a colleague because she's lovely and I'll miss her. And when I went, I normally sit on the edge and don't know how to join the conversation, and I just sat and just laughed and joined in, and it was really lovely. I've never had that before.
Do you feel like what has given you the freedom to just be in that space? What do you think is allowing that freedom for you?
I don't go with any. I don't go there wanting anything. I don't need anything from anybody there. I don't go wanting their approval or fearing their disapproval.
Yeah. That's both sides right there.
Yeah.
Right? There's I want to accomplish something or I have to avoid the other. Do you find that that you just don't care? If someone is judging you and thinks that what you're saying is dumb or thinks that what you're saying is irrelevant, do you care?
No.
I know. That's the funnest part. Well, it's not fun. It's just relieving to go, they can think all they want. I don't care. It's like being truthful. Wouldn't you say like you're living in the truth?
Yes.
All the time.
I'm not trying. I'm not striving for something. I'm just being there and just joining in.
It's awesome.
I've never done that before. Really never.
So would you say it's like being blind?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, it feels that way. Like doesn't mean you don't, pick a fun outfit that's got really fun expression. It doesn't mean you don't do your hair or brush your teeth or, it just means you don't care. It's that level of caringness that's kind of been dropped down. God, I don't know how to explain it other than I express what brings me joy. Like I'm wearing my Aloha shirt.
I love that.
Right.
My day glow.
I've never even been to Hawaii and I'm wearing an Aloha shirt because I love it.
Yeah.
It's so easy.
It's so easy.
Right, and I didn't have to read a self-help book to even like make a vision board.
Not on my own anymore, Robin. People just must seem different because I don't know people. I don't know.
Well, your perception is very different at this point. You're not looking at everything through a straw. Would you say that before you were looking at everything through these like pretense? It's like having a bias towards how everything is looking, and everything you're observing or experiencing is adjusted relative to your, what you're looking through, like a straw, right?
Trying to manipulate everything.
Everything is trying to conform into that viewpoint. That's how I was with how the religion viewpoint was for me. It was very much positioned to, it has to fit inside this space. And so I would have to construct an environment in my head around how wrong people were, which made what I was seeing through the straw correct. So everything had to conform or be adjusted around, is this person, are they acceptable to these standards or are they unacceptable? Is what's going on here? Is this environment, Is it acceptable within my space of comfort or not? And having to adjust around everything and everybody. So for me, I recall the day I recovered, okay, I had classes in the morning and I was walking through campus and I was in a space of they're fat, they're thin, they're wearing dark clothes, they're, and then there was always the alternative, which is I'm better than them, but oh my God, they have their shit together. I'm such a piece of shit. So it was a constant positioning around where I fit. And it was always better than them, worse than them. There was no reality in it. And I look at that from my awareness from today and the studying I've done with consciousness, not my studying, the really trying to understand survival mode and how that way of being is actually a state of being that is important if you're in threat, right? So if your life or your state of, that pack animal need to, first of all, the desire to be accepted into a tribe, that kind of tribal psychology, if you're not feeling secure in that, why it would be important for you to create divisions, bad and good. Have you looked at that at all? Have you really thought about the reason why you're functioning that way?
I'm aware that it was either, you said it a moment ago, either I was completely crap and no good, or I was better than everybody, simultaneously living in my head, which is really, really hard to live with because it's just like constant friction in your mind all the time.
Yeah, and you have no control. It feels like you have no control, except for over the people that you're better than. Which is freaking funny. I'm really trying to get this to, it's like it would be easy to judge that, right? It'd be easy to go, that's such a shitty way to live, which is true. But it serves a purpose. It would be a beneficial way to live if you were in tribal warfare, right? The way you look and dress is a very superficial way to recognize, is this person safe to be with or dangerous to be with? The thing about it is, if someone's inferior to you, they actually are more dangerous. If someone is superior to you, you feel like you're the one who's dangerous, right? Like, I am lacking. I'm at risk. I'm vulnerable. When you see someone else that you can put down, that's a sign that you're safe, right? Because I'm better than them. They don't know what they're talking about. You're bad. I'm good. Does that make sense? So putting people below you is in essence safe, even though you're living in kind of disconnect from everybody. You can't just accept people.
Well, you're talking, I can almost feel the memory of the emotions that go with that, and how deeply unpleasant that is to feel like that.
Well, because you never really feel, well, you have a comparison now. So having this state of freedom from caring one way or the other and having compassion for someone that, again, going back to, for me, that one day, the day I recovered, the morning was very different than the afternoon. Because the next time I went on to campus, I all of a sudden saw the same group of people wearing the same clothing, and I felt intense love and compassion and awareness around why they were just trying to feel that they were with like people, so they all dressed the same way. It was like they were all in goth and black and tattoos and piercings, and I just felt such incredible compassion and love for what they were doing. And to me, it wasn't bad anymore. I remember thinking, not only do I see the beauty of their existence and who they were, and I felt intense love for them, but I had compassion for the idea that they want to fit in. And they're fitting, and they're doing what feels right to them. It feels good for them to do that. That's what they should do. Make sense? So it's like they're doing nothing wrong. It was amazing, the whole difference. The shift, it was a major shift in awareness, but it didn't really, it was effortless, right? You'll find that it's just the way you are, or the way you're being. It's a state of being.
Biggest massive difference is all of a sudden I've got a sense of humour.
Oh, for sure.
I've laughed so much. I've laughed and laughed. I've had so much fun with people, just absolutely creased up laughing. It's really strange. It's really lovely. It's just all of a sudden found a sense of humour.
Well, because it's...
I've laughed at things before, like certain comedians make laugh, but not like this. Not like just from being open to other people and appreciating what they're saying and joining in and
yeah, not taking yourself so serious.
yeah.
Right? It's so true. Well, and do you get a sense too of the infinite relativity? It's infinite relativity. That would be what Dr. Hawkins calls context. There's infinite context to create a story, or it's like, what's your story? Well, that was one way to look at it, of infinite ways to process something. So even in your own kind of life story, you could say, well, it was because I took this position, or this, I made an assumption, right? Because I made that assumption, never questioned it, this outcome was what should have happened under the circumstance, under the context. Under the context of your value and your livelihood in life is based on your ability to be better than everybody around you in every way. You could see, well, if that's something you hold true, you now are a slave to continuously working to get better as a person. You can't just be. Yeah, because being would be inferior. Being would mean that you are not reaching your full potential. I know. So many people are like, well, Robin, aren't we supposed to improve ourselves? Shouldn't we be improving ourselves? If I don't do that, what's going to keep me from being a lazy piece of shit that just lives off of welfare? Right? I hear that a lot. What would you say to that?
If somebody was worried about that, if that is what would happen to them.
Say that again?
What would I say to somebody who was worried about that?
Well, yeah, he says, well, how are you, so, I mean, are you saying, so it's a common question is, accept who you are, what's going to keep you from being a piece of shit person that's on welfare and doesn't work and who's lazy? Shouldn't we be improving ourselves, aspiring to be better? I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
What is that? How would you respond to that?
Doesn't being on welfare and or being homeless or being like Fred who lived on the roundabout doesn't change who you are. It doesn't diminish you I don't know if that would explain it very well to somebody, but it doesn't diminish who you are.
No, well, and what they're doing, when people ask me that, what they're projecting is their narcissism, right? I'm superior. That they're basically projecting out their narcissistic ignorance of someone who's homeless, right? They're making assumptions about someone. They're lazy, they don't work hard, they're not trying. So what they're doing is projecting onto others their fear. if I don't work hard, I am going to be that, right? So and they're projecting that supremacy, right? And what that tells you is how derogatory they are in their mind, and what they're trying to run away from is that extreme self-centered narcissistic concept of my work and improving myself keeps me from being a piece of shit, loathful person that I criticize, right? So that's very similar to thin supremacy, right? What if you're not dieting and taking care of your body, you're going to end up binging and being a lazy piece of shit person who's super fat and slothful and ugly. You hear the supremacy in that, and the bias and the stigma. Yeah, so oftentimes you'll hear someone, not that it matters for you, but you'll be like, how are you so happy? And you'll say, well, I stopped trying. I stopped working so hard. I don't care anymore. I don't need to achieve things. And someone who lives in that state of narcissistic achievement will think, well, shouldn't we all be working at being better? Inherent to that is we are inherently shitty. You're a bad person. Without achievement, you suck.
Yeah, that's just not
it's
true.
4:30.
Can you see it's very superficial, right?
Yeah. There's a man in a place called Wolverhampton, which is like a really horrible industrial part of the UK called Fred, and he lived on a roundabout in the middle of an intersection with all the cars going around him all the time in a tent, and he was really happy, and everybody loved him and took him food and clothes and spent some time with him, and he was just always, and he lived there the whole year round. And he died a few years ago, and when he died they found out that he was a very wealthy man who, when his wife died, he just left his house and he didn't have any families. He came to the UK during the Second World War. He was a Jewish refugee. He went to live on the roundabout. And I just love him. I love him so much. I just think living on the roundabout, people are so terrified of that and think, well, it's really not that bad.
No, that's like when I remember in my mind thinking I'd rather be alone, living in the wilderness, all by myself, than to have the riches of the body and the religion and all this acceptance. I don't want it. Sounds like that's kind of what he realized. He was rich and wealthy and it was worth nothing.
Yeah.
In the end, it was just a superficial potential. It really didn't give him a sense of truth, reality, connectivity, Yeah. So he was probably happier living in a roundabout.
The island in the middle. Yeah. There's something really wonderful about him, because people just used to go and sit with him because he was just so happy.
Probably a guru of some sort.
Yeah.
He gave people a sense of maybe compassion, not just for him, but for themselves, to see he's so happy. He's so okay with himself, and okay that someone might think he's a loser piece of shit who doesn't work hard. He's so lazy, he's socialist who's taking money. And that's another thing. My mother-in-law had said something to me about that in that context, in that type of derogatory way, about people potentially living on some type of assistance, as if they were living enriched, right? I'm like, you realize, of course, their level of existence is so much more simple. It's so her life is super complicated. She's got this house and all this yard work and all this shit that's super complicated, and acting as if they're living in the level of luxury that they have with their welfare, not realizing that the level of existence on welfare is so not rich. projecting that I have to work hard to live this way, thinking that they're living that way, not working at all. When in reality, they're actually living in a much lesser situation, significantly less. I don't know if that makes any sense. They don't understand what they're doing is projecting actually her sense of poverty and her riches onto someone who's actually in poverty, living to just put food on the table.
Yeah.
It's that narcissism, the cultural idea of supremacy, and then the stigmatization of people who are not in survival mode, trying to prove themselves with their success, right? I always think about that. The homeless person who is to some degree super content with where they're at, content enjoying their day sitting on the side of the road, content not getting as much food, content wearing dirtier clothes. Who do you think is happier? The person who is never content with their riches, living in a state of perpetual poverty?
Yeah. It reminds me, I went to India 1999 and there was a young family living on the pavement outside the hotel, and there's small children, like baby just walking, and the wife and husband and lots of little ones, and every morning she bought a flower for her hair and just swept the pavement, and the children played and she cooked food, and they looked so happy. Mm-hmm. They were so happy.
Yeah, because they were content.
Yeah.
Good enough. Why do we need more? So, we can look at people who continuously demonize and shame and judge and stigmatize those that have less.
They were beautiful. They were a beautiful family.
As if that family is a bad family, even though they're really content.
Yeah, absolutely nothing.
Yeah, and what are they really asking for? Some food.
Yeah.
And the person that's super rich, what are they asking for? Perfection with everything. Who is truly in poverty at that point?
Yeah.
Who's living in perpetual badness, wrongness, not good enough?
Tension.
Oh yeah, the one that's rich, who has all the material crap, who's working so hard to be a better person, proving myself with these grandiose concepts of what we should be. Who's in poverty?
Yeah, the poor soul is killing themselves trying to be something desperately and feeling like they're never getting there, and there's always a hole, and there's always a hard
And look at all those lazy people not working hard enough, right? Look at all those lazy people. It's really a matter of, if we look at what poverty is, isn't it a matter of it being okay with what you have? So again, you could say, well, if this person doesn't have much, but they're okay with that. They're content with that. So they have freedom of the mind at that point. They have this sense of freedom, similar to what you're experiencing. Someone who is less, but is content and accepting of what it is. Their mind is now free to be creative, to go to the park and hang out with all the ducks, to just appreciate the trees, they can exist with what reality is from that point of view. The person who is striving, if they're not content with what they have and they need more, it's not good enough. You can see they have all this stuff, but the distance between their state of being content and what they want is probably larger.
It's larger all the time.
Correct. It's larger. So the person who has less, living in poverty, who is content, they have, this amount, and their needs are really not that much higher. Versus the person who needs this much and wants a whole lot more. There's a bigger distance, right, between reality and their being content. Who is in poverty psychologically?
Well, a person who's got heaps and desperate for heaps more.
Who is wanting to achieve more. So there's a grade of achievement they want that is creating a distance from what they have. Versus someone who is content with what they have and don't necessarily need the achievement. So finding yourself somewhere in the balance of it all, right? Should I have to live in poverty to be okay with what I have? Or can I just accept where I'm at? So what I've learned to do is adapt where I can adapt everything, right? So I went down to, I am content if I can have freedom. So it's like a math equation. Everything equals freedom. So there's what I have, what exists, and what I need. What I exist and what I need equates to, then I'm free to think at all times. So what I've learned to do is be content with what I have. So then no matter what, I get freedom. So I will adjust down if I have to. So I don't have to be clutching onto success, material success. I don't clutch onto that. Constantly willing to let it go because my capacity to accept is capable of living on a tent in the side of a mountainside by myself. I could be homeless. I could live off of welfare, right? So I bring my needs down. That way I can just live in where I'm at and always feel content because I'm always capable of going back down into being homeless. It's like I'm manipulating that survival mechanism, right? Around.
Yeah. It's like when you told me, like, when I said I was terrified that really a latent mass murderer hasn't come out yet. And you said, well, so what if you are? Let's go there. It's like, well, so what if you've got nothing and you live in a tent on the side of a hill? Let's go there.
Yes.
So what if you're 200 pounds? Let's go there.
Yeah, go into the worst case scenario. You go down and you go and you release it. You accept it. You go in and actually understand what that is versus having those beliefs that make it derogatory. That means you suck. So what? What if you do suck? What if that's the truth of your nature?
Yeah, that's so freeing.
Oh, yeah.
So freeing.
So it's like saying my needs are at really close to zero. I mean, if I have a place to go pee, poop, if I have a tent to sleep in that keeps me safe from the bears, maybe I don't even need a tent. Maybe I should just be with the bears. And if I get eaten, I get eaten. Make it down. Go into, I'm content with very little. Now you have all of this freedom. So if you want to, you have all the freedom in the world. You have an infinite space of what life is potential could be, right? So you have the ability.
That's why I've been feeling so at ease and good around people, because I don't want anything off them anymore. I used to desperately want things. I either wanted to feel superior to them so I could feel good, or I wanted them to improve on me, or both.
Oh, both. Yeah, that's like, again, saying, well, am I better than them, or am I less than them? Am I better than them, or am I less than them? Again, that is such a survival thing. It would make sense to be in that state of mind if you feel vulnerable to, like, everything equates out to death in the end, because that's how our brain is wired. So to you, being seen as inferior means you are vulnerable to death. So it manifests, you're not consciously aware of this, but you could go back to the feeling and it feels like there's something bad going to happen. I have to do something about it. I need to either, it's like that fight or flight response, or fight, flight, or pause, right? Where I'm paralyzed. I can't talk. I'm stuttering when I talk to people. Social anxiety.
Yeah. I've been having so much fun, that really.
You what?
And I've been having so much fun, and it is, you took me there, you said, well, so what if you're a latent mass murderer, psychopath? Nut job.
And you're repressing it all through an eating disorder. Just let go of the eating disorder and find out what the truth is. Do you really get joy poking people's eyeballs out for fun? Probably not.
I didn't want to go. When you said, well, what if you are £200? Didn't want to go there.
I know, because you have all those beliefs about it. But you get to a place where you're like, well, if I don't go there, I'm never going to recover. I will never recover because I'm not willing to go there. Not willing, not even open-minded about it. That's a huge block for a lot of people I work with, is the unwillingness to look at what you're afraid of. Because you're scared of it. And you're actually doing exactly what your brain is wired to do, which is avoid that. So as soon as I bring the bear into this space, look at this. It's no, I can't. Don't make me do it, Robin. Don't make me do it. At that point, a lot of times people get angry at me because they think I'm the one who is causing their dissonance. When in reality, it's what they're afraid of and refuse to look at and criticize and judge as a bad thing. It's like, why don't you look at this for a little bit? Maybe you're wrong. Oftentimes people don't like that feeling of wrongness either because they have such a righteous, self-righteous concept of I'm right. Well, if what I bring into the room, which is, here's what you think you're right about, and I have evidence that your rightness might actually not be true, you'd have to actually deflate the ego, right? That pride inflated concept. Yeah. You're not as amazing as you think you are. The reality of the truth, you're inflated, you're poofed up, you're not really that strong and big, but your concept of self is, right? That's what makes it hard, is you had this inflated concept of yourself. You always had to prove, I'm this big, I'm this amazing. And so when you bring evidence in the room that you actually suck, and my way of doing it is to say, well, does this really suck? I mean, your judgment of the suckiness is why you're afraid to look at it. Just look at it without the judgment. 200 pounds. Take the judgment out. Is it that bad? Physically living in a 200-pound body, is it really that bad? Or are you demonizing it and catastrophizing it relative to your inflated concept of yourself?
Totally, yeah.
It's horrible to the inflated idea of yourself, to the megalomaniac, right?
Yeah. Oh, yes.
That's poverty, if you want to call it that. Living in poverty. If I'm 200 pounds, I will forever be a hermit living in total poverty. It's like, okay, well, that's true if you really believe it's inferior and a horrible thing, living in that state of perpetual martyrdom. My life will be so bad. Well, it's true. It is true if you believe in that narcissistic, inflated concept of yourself, and it is just a concept. So, it feels complicated, really, don't you think? Because what you had to do is kind of burst the bubble of inflation to reality, and then actually ask, is this a bad thing? Am I really a bad thing? Because if I'm not, I'm free.
Yeah.
Can I accept being 200 pounds, 300 pounds, 400 pounds? If it means that I'm free from having to fix it.
Yeah.
Forever. It's like an equation, right?
Yeah.
This plus this equals this. This plus this divided by this. It's like a fraction, right? So what we did is we took the divided by and made it 0. Or divided by 1. Right? So there is no fraction. And it is as simple as, is what I have good enough to equate to freedom? Because if it's not good enough, you'll never be free. Ever. Doesn't matter how much you get. The other thing is, to simplify this, if you want to, and give me some feedback, tell me if this is true for you or not, is if you don't know how to actually be in a space of acceptance, if you cannot accept where you're at and you don't know how to do that, you have to know how to accept where you're at in order for you to accept anything. If you can't accept now, what makes you think you're going to accept now later?
That's really true.
Right? I had a very, very clear understanding of this the day that I recovered. The moment I recovered was, and this came to me when I was imagining a new body if I die and reincarnate. So I was processing the suicide. I remember, and I had this thought, well, if I can't accept the body as it is in this body, what makes me think I'm going to have the ability or the an understanding of how to accept the next body? If I don't know how to accept this one unconditionally, that means I'm not going to accept that one unconditionally. So what's the point of committing suicide? I'm going to have to do whatever I'm going to need to do to be free with the next one. If I don't do it now with this one, I won't know how to do it with the next one either.
Amazing.
That came to me in that out of body. And that's when I actually started going, well, hold on, I don't necessarily need to, if I murder this body, what's the point? It's not a physical problem. It's a spiritual resistance that I'm spiritually resisting reality, all truth. I'm criticizing it. I'm not existing in the vulnerability of reality, of the truth of reality. And it's like, so I'm going to murder this body and I'm going to have the same exact issue with the next one because it's not a physical issue. It's an issue of not accepting truth, reality. Whether I'm fat, skinny, gay, straight, poor, rich, everything in the middle, all of it. If I can't just accept it, I'll never be content. Ever. Because I'm not really allowing life to manifest. It's like saying I'm not going to allow the flower to open. Because I don't like it. I'm scared I won't like it.
That's a good answer for someone who says, well, I just be lazy and...
Well, I always say, well, what's wrong with being lazy? Why are you judging laziness? See, I go there. Because they're criticizing that, right? So it's like, well, so what if your energy is lower? Is it really a matter of I have the energy and desire to go work, but I'm choosing not to because I'm a bad person? Isn't there something that when you are lazy, there's a reason?
Yeah.
You're not giving it context. Laziness is just a judgment. Without context. Context. Without context. Without some understanding of what laziness is. What is lazy?
Yeah.
I think most people assume you're lazy if you have the energy and will and desire and you're choosing not to do that. Who does that?
That doesn't make sense.
It doesn't at all. You're a lazy piece of shit. It just is, it's funny. So I always go the route of, well, what's wrong with that? What's wrong with lazy? What's wrong with that? Again, you go back to the guy that's in that roundabout. What's wrong with that? If he's content.
Yeah.
He should do that. He should be living, in the center of a roundabout.
Yeah, and I think he really brought a lot to people just sitting in the roundabout. People felt, I don't know.
Probably happy to see him. Wait!
Yeah, he was Fred to them. They didn't even know his name. Everyone called him Fred. And everybody loved him, and he was like a mascot for the town.
Can you see that this person who had all the wealth and riches at his fingertips, who chose, I don't need it. He was probably incredibly enlightened.
Didn't even need his name.
Nope. He was just in the moment and living what felt good to him.
Yeah.
Think about the type of persona that would have to shame him like that. Like,
I only just realised that recently, like now, though. I'd always been intrigued by the story, but it's only now that I really understand.
Where he was that made him so content in that space.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It just depressurizes everything, too, when you get to that space. It depressurizes it. It's like, so I'm writing this book. It doesn't have to have a certain outcome at all. I don't care if someone likes it or not.
Yeah, you said you didn't even care if your name was on the... That's awesome.
The only problem is there's so much of my story in this book. I'm talking, all right, like, you know what I mean? Like, this is...
Yeah.
Because that's really when you look at how you came to work with me, would you agree or not that a lot of it had to do with the fact that you connected so much to the truth of what I was describing for not just my recovery, but when I'm talking to other people, that you can sense that there's truth in what I'm describing. Just the descriptions of the darkness in it. You can connect with that and go, holy shit, she's been there. How does she know that?
Yeah.
You don't learn this in school.
Yeah.
You know, so it's the, so I do have to kind of put a face to the book, but I don't even care if someone says that's not true for me. Well, it probably isn't. Who cares? I don't care. So it gives me the freedom to just really express my own experience and my thoughts about it. I could be so wrong. I could be so misguided, and I'm already okay with that. Like the guy sitting and living homelessly on the roundabout.
Yeah.
It's just, honestly, it's amazing. For me, going this route, going the route of the bottom first, just hit the bottom right away. Why do we have to like peel the onion to get you there? Why can't you just get to the bottom? You're going to die. You're going to die because everybody's going to shun you, and you're going to live on the side of the hill with a tent. How's that sound? Pretty freaking good now, doesn't it? Because then it's like, well, then what I do doesn't matter. Well, pretty much that's the truth either way, whether you know it or not. Look at me. I'm like so special. Well, now you got pressure.
Yeah. That's where I was.
Well, and once you get to this place, it's like, well, what does it matter? I should just do what brings me joy. And I really enjoy what I'm doing. And I enjoy my livelihood from it. It gives me freedom to travel. It gives me freedom to do these things. So who cares? Why do I got to be the top notch of the top cream? Top. Why can't you just do what you're doing and blend into the background so you have all the freedom to just be and to exist in this experience that you're getting for free? You have a free experience here in consciousness. The body's providing you consciousness. You haven't done shit to earn it. You just showed up. You know, if you believe in karma, you've done enough. You've done enough to the point where this was the lifetime where you made a major shift. You must have suffered previously, so at least you did earn that. However many lifetimes you've lived up into this point, I guess you did earn this. But it's still just handed to you. You haven't done shit.
Yeah, that's really true.
So
really true.
You have however long the body supports this to figure whatever you want out.
Yeah.
So do you really want to take the life that you have and this free consciousness you're receiving and isolate yourself in shame because you're not the cream of the crop of whatever, living in extreme spiritual poverty, homelessness in spirit? For what? For what? For some concept of you have to prove yourself better than you are. So now you're a slave to that. Well, what if you can just be the lesser? Just go to the lesser route, right? What if you suck? See, that's the technique, right? That's where I had to go. For me, that might not work for everybody, but let me tell you, I'm a pile of shit. I suck. I'm weak. I'm dumb. I'm unintelligent. I'm not spiritually progressed. So, because for me, religion was a big part of releasing myself. I had to be in this perfect temple of whiteness, and I was the black sheep. So I had to really accept, well, what if I am the devil's child? Well, then I should just accept it and then be free.
Yeah. Like me, what if you are the latent mass murderer?
Well, then you know what? Is it really, are you flawed, or are you just, the universe? Again, you've done nothing. So here we are. If I am the worst, that means God made a mistake if you believe in God.
It's 5 o'clock.
Or the universe, right? If you believe that this is all universal, you're stardust. Well, then stardust fucked up. And it's the stardust's fault.
Oh, brilliant.
I had that thought too. That's another one of those things that came to me the moment I remember thinking, well, if the integrity I have in my heart is true, and I have nothing to do with it, it's just there. Well, if that's flawed, well then, you know what? Whoever created it is flawed. And I gotta trust that however I am as a human being on this planet through millennia of evolution, it's gotta be working somehow. So I should just live with that. So if I am a human being, am a lower level human being, well, it is what it is. I can't change my genetics, DNA, and the millennia of evolution that brought me to this point. But clearly, through survival of the fittest, I'm still here. I'm here, so why can't I just accept what that is?
Yeah.
It's like dismantling the narcissism is what you're doing. What you're doing is you're going beyond those lower states of animal survival mechanisms, the ego, right? And you're at least getting the courage to accept your suckiness, the courage to be okay with it. Once you bust out of that, now it's just like all this relativity shows up. Well, it's relative. Anyways.
Well, thank you so much, Robin. It's lovely to talk to you.
Well, I'm very excited for you. I would encourage you to keep on pushing your limits, pushing the boundaries, put yourself into vulnerability, keep on doing it. And always be okay with loss.
Yeah.
Don't attach to gain. Because
Yeah,
it can always go away.
Yeah.
I always go back to that vision in my head of me living in a tent. And it's always, I'm like, I could do that. I could do that. I could live in a freaking mansion. I could go live in a 1-bedroom apartment. I could live in a homeless shelter and be content.
Be your own friend.
Oh yeah, anywhere. I could have, it's to me, it's just what is freedom worth? The freedom of my mind, the freedom to love, the freedom to just appreciate what is. Why fight reality and reject reality? Why, even think that we can create something that, well, we can create anything with whatever we have, but why go beyond reality? Why can't you just stay in the presence of now and then create there with what is existing, right? To do that, you have to accept everything as it is. You have to accept everything, rejection, abandonment, your history of being, for me, it was, I accept disapproval from the people I love the most, being seen inferior from the people I love the most. I accept the fact that the vulnerability of being physically traumatized, sexually traumatized, as is what it was and how it's like, I accept the flower blooming, whatever it is, I will accept what it is. And it's beauty. Why don't we question the flowers?
Yeah.
Right? And that's what gives you this perpetual freedom. It's like it doesn't go away until you reject reality, until you judge the truth as wrong. Now you're God, and now you get to suffer. Why judge that too? There is a lesson in that suffering, right?
I hope I'm just floating in the middle of the pool now, not near the edge, getting sucked into the whirlpools and waterfalls and.
Doesn't matter if it's deep or shallow. If it's in shallow end, cool. Deep end, cool. Moderate end, cool. Whatever it is what it is. Adjust and adapt. Accept as it is. Accept it. Accept.
I came back to you last time. You said, you might have thought you were right in the middle of the pool, say, but actually, because I started fretting over because I lost weight, started attaching to that.
Oh yeah, exactly. Then you got to keep it.
Yeah.
And think about it. Do you really want to give up all this freedom to maintain some illusion? It's an illusion.
That's crazy again. Crazy. Because I lost a few pounds.
Well, because you believed in the illusion that it meant there was something, you were successful and that people would like you and people would see this. And even if you're losing pounds and weight and you're getting leaner, do you really care? Do you really want to care? Do you really want to put that on your resume? Wouldn't you rather they can think what they want about it. I don't care. I'm not willing to maintain it, sustain it, promote it, even connect to whatever illusion that they're believing in that makes them think that there's something better going on here. Because nothing really has changed. So you're the same person. Nothing's changed.
How many sessions have we got left, Robin?
I have no idea. Let me go look.